As a leader, certainly an inclusive leader, is to be thinking about the language that we use. And if we're not intentional about that language and we don't recognize that once we become a leader, we don't put that lid on, if you will, but we still have that mindset of growth and development. And so one of the questions that I always say to ask is, as a leader at any level and working with a team, certainly multi-generational, is put the question out there, how can I support you? What's the best way for me as your leader to support you? Because rather than have me assume how I need to support my team, it's why not take a step further and say, ask my team what's the best way that they need for me to plug in.
Hello, welcome to another wonderful episode of Life Empowered Living Room. This is Celeste Cuffie. I am your host on today, and I'm so excited to be here with one of my favorite people. And I know I say that a lot, but guess what? I mean it. And his name is Nick Dillon. Not only is he one of my favorite people, but I'm also partial because he is my mentor, he is my coach, he is my friend, he is my brother, he is my fellow thought leader, and he is an amazing, amazing coach, speaker, trainer, operating not only in this city, but across the country. So welcome, Nick. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here and have this dialogue.
Yeah, I was so looking forward to it. I was like, I need a man who's a great man. I need this voice. I got a voice. And it was Nick. So how are you? How is life?
Yes, life is well. Loving Texas, loving the duo connection here. So back and forth often to Milwaukee because my parents and family are still here. So even here on about a 2-week stretch here now. So feeling good, loving it, loving business here and also in Texas. So
I love that so much. And that actually just takes me into my very first question. How are you navigating the duo? You have the family here. So I like to think of us as the sandwich generation because we have our kids underneath us, our parents above us, and we got this business and all in the middle that we're trying to navigate. How you doing? How are you navigating?
yes. So very strategically calendar-wise. So the good thing is that a lot of times clients will give us the opportunity to schedule things and give them dates. So like I've scheduled some stuff around my grandkids' graduation or strategic things that I know are happening here that I really want to be and participate in so that I can handle the both duo things and don't have to be that much back and forth. But as you probably have seen a lot on social media, wheels are up a lot for me back and forth. But yeah, we manage it well. And a lot of stuff now is done remotely. Good to have that flexibility in some cases, but I love being able to be in person when I get an opportunity to. So
Absolutely, absolutely. And now I have to tell you, I am a huge proponent of virtual work. I'm a huge proponent of being present. I am a huge supporter of trying to be good, bad, and different, all things, right, for all the people at all the time. But I also struggle with a little bit of that change, a little bit of wow, the weather's below zero here, but when I get home to Texas, it's 70 degrees. So just navigating the shifts. What do you say to people who are just trying to manage the change?
Yes. What I would say is be open to the possibility of what it may look like. And because when you make the choice, and honestly, when I left Wisconsin, I intended to close the business here and just really navigate the business in Texas. But what ended up happening was the year I left, the business coming out of the pandemic just started flourishing again. And so I just never dissolved the business. And in fact, it's growing pretty good right now. So it's still going. But I would say be open to the possibility of what that can look like. And to your point earlier, in this whole hybrid environment that we're working in, try to make it work within a certain set of boundaries and parameters to, I don't like traveling a lot. And I usually try to give myself some time in between for R&R a little bit, which I'm not very good at and working on it very much so right now. But, just be open to what it can look like and don't put yourself in a box, because I feel like these days when we're exposing ourselves on social media, you could get that call from anywhere, and you have to be willing to go and serve, as I look at it, in order to really make it work. So I try to stay flexible, try to stay open to what it looks like. And if it works, great. If it doesn't, then hey, maybe next time.
Okay, so now we just jumped in, right, with all of the wisdom, already pulling from you. Sorry and thank you at the same time. But tell us, how did you get started? What is your journey? How did you get to here?
Yes. So interesting. Did a stint in corporate America. So I'm fresh out of college in the early 90s and did a stint in corporate America. And from corporate America, went a little bit in government. So I worked for government a few years. And while I was in government, I actually started, and I guess everyone's going to hear this now, but I actually started my first business in 1992 as a arbitration mediator for businesses that were litigating. And I was a subscriber of, do you remember Kiplinger's magazine back in the day, business magazine? Yeah. So they would always on the last few pages have, if you want to be an entrepreneur, here's this. So I found this franchise and I started that business in 1992, arbitration mediation. And I did it a little while. It was kind of slow going, and then technology advanced with the legal system and it kind of weaned itself out. So I stayed in government a little, about 5 or 6 years, and then became an entrepreneur 100%, doing risk management consulting. And loved it. I traveled all over and did a lot. I was younger then, so I loved being able to explore. And that was my first introduction to really understanding and appreciating the value of time. Because I think when we're working in as an employee or a professional inside an organization, oftentimes we get into the autopilot mindset and we don't really appreciate the time and the demands that employers want from us. We pretty much just go with the flow. That was my first opportunity to see, certainly from an entrepreneur standpoint, that time is extremely valuable. How you use that 24 hours that you get is even more valuable. But I also found that really being intentional about what that needs to look like, because I will tell anyone as an entrepreneur, I probably spend more time working on my business than I did in corporate America, because you're always, God gives me downloads at 2 and 3 o'clock morning, and I got to get up. I got my little notebook by the bed. I'm like, I can't believe I just got this whole, I wake, my wife would be like, what's going on? I got to download a whole webinar. Let me write this out because this is just good stuff. And then just over the years, did another stint in corporate America while still working a part-time business at that time, and really just stayed with the entrepreneur spirit, because I kind of felt like from a value standpoint, you got to have the mindset of always defining that for yourself. And I think too often, and it is very easy to get in a situation where we let our employers or someone else define what that value looks like. And I'll never forget, I was working at a broker as a director, senior director of risk management and educational services. And I got this mindset to start the next business, which is the one I have right now. Interestingly, I'm like, okay, God, really? Are you telling me this? It was take this word believe, start the next business, and do everything using that word believe. And I will tell you, almost 20 years later now, that word believe is in everything that I do. That mindset is in everything that I do. And I use that as the foundation, because I believe that, mindset is everything, and everything is driven from our belief system. And so I use that as my anchor to really catapult me to where I am today. And I will tell you, you're believing in a way that in some cases you don't see it. All you really have is the vision.
That's all you have. It's the one in your head.
It's the one in your head. It's the one in your head. You got to move in a space that you see this vision. You have to tell yourself, hey, if I look at what that vision looks like, because one of the things that entrepreneur has taught me is you grow through it. In order for me to get there, I have to be someone different. And so I got to lean into the identity of what that looks like, which means I have to grow and evolve. I have to cultivate. I have to stretch myself. I have to feel some discomfort, but I got to keep leaning into it. And I think what has really been a sustainable thing over the years is really just willing to believe, even though I can't see, and have a really strong faith that says, if you give it to me, then I know it can work. And I know that if I just keep pushing ahead, it can be an amazing. And I even told my wife, I said, look, if God can take us from Wisconsin to Dallas on a business I'm thinking is not going to make it and telling myself, well, if I need to get a job, I'll get a job, and didn't have to, I'm on the right track.
Yeah, absolutely. That's
I'm
so
on the right
powerful.
track.
I not the same, but similar in principle, where I was in corporate America, and when I was there, I allowed the company, right, to define who I was. I allowed the fact that I had this husband, I had these kids, I had, the American dream, quote unquote, and all of those things were the things that I used to define me. Except when I lost my job, now I found myself lost because that was part of my definition. And so I had to go through a journey of independent of my husband, independent of my kids, independent of my job. Who am I? And not only who do I say I am, but also who does God say that I am? And that actually is the one that I'll go with. I'll go with what he says, even beyond me, right? Because when I lost my job, I felt a very high level of guilt. And I felt a high level of what's wrong with me that they let me go. And it was in that moment that Life in Power started. It was during that rediscovery of who I was. And I won't even say I will say discovery of who I was, because I didn't know beforehand. I mean, I think it was in that journey where I met you as well. And so looking back, right, here we are. I'm 14 years in the business. You are 20 years in the belief business. Knowing what you know now, what would you tell your younger self?
Ooh, yes. Probably one of the biggest things I would tell my younger self is to keep believing. And just knowing me, and when I go younger, just taking myself back to, let's say, even teenage years. Because the one big thing that I struggle with, a lot of people don't know, is that the mindset of being good enough. And so I often thought I wasn't good enough. Mm-hmm. And that comes from childhood bullying and having some health challenges as a youngster. And so I just didn't really think that today would come, or opportunities like what I've experienced would come. And so I always would default back to, well, I'm not good enough. So I would say that often made me self-select out in a couple of things and didn't do some opportunities that maybe were in front of me. And over the years, it's just really shown me that, hey, you know what? If you really, really want something, you've got to really lean into it. And I've just told myself, hey, I got to keep believing, keep pressing forward, keep believing, keep pressing forward, even though it doesn't feel good. And the number one thing I would say is I got used to the mindset of start even if I don't think I'm ready.
So start anyway.
Start scared, start in pain, just start.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned a little bit ago that you kind of started a business fresh out of college. And as I was obviously researching you, and correct me if I'm wrong, and add all the other stuff, and my question will come. You have a master's of science. Mm-hmm. You have a master's of art. You are a licensed chemical dependency counselor. You are a substance abuse professional. You are nationally certified as an addiction counselor. You are John Maxwell certified. You are a life and recovery coach. You are a drug and alcohol counselor. I know I'm missing something. What am I missing? And then the question is, today there is different thought processes around traditional education and certificates. And really, education as a whole. I can't tell you how many times I've heard the term YouTube University, right, to learn things. What is your thought process just around education, the value or not of education these days?
Very good question. I believe in lifelong learning. And so while I believe that education gives you access, so that's kind of a foundational thing that I think is a family value that my mom really instilled in us as young men, is that education gives you access. And the value of education and that access really depends on your intention with it, okay? And so while I subscribe to lifelong learning, I encourage others that if you believe that the traditional route of college and then, undergrad, the whole traditional college is, if it's yours, if it's a great path, it worked for me, then go for it. Mm-hmm. If not, there are so many different opportunities and modes to learn because, again, at the end of the day, I know PhDs, I know master's degree folks, I know undergrad degree folks can't find a job, okay? And sometimes you got to ask yourself, is it confidence? Is it lack of ability to interview well? Whatever that might be. But when you show up in a way that opens your mind to, hey, because just like business, you have to really be intentional about saying, I want to get in the trenches because because I want to be able to learn this in a great way. And I want to be able to know this, and I want to be able to master it. I hear the word mastery a lot in things, and there's so many different roads and paths to mastery. And you just got to delve into one and really do well at it. And you've heard a lot of, even my grandkids will tell me, one grandson told me that at first he wanted to be a pilot. And then I asked him again, maybe some months later, now he's like, I want to be a content creator. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Well, it's master of what that path looks like for you to be able to sustain yourself, take care of yourself in a way that works for you. Having done the time period that I did in corporate, and this is just me speaking my own, I would tell anyone, whatever you choose as your choice, your path, education-wise, even corporate-wise, or whatever that path or system that you use to take care of yourself is, make sure there's a level of fulfillment for you, that there's a level of significance for you beyond just a paycheck, if you will, because we all can do whatever we need to do to take care of ourselves. But I don't discount the idea that I want to feel good about what I do. I want to feel like the work that I do matters. I want to feel like, the people in the room have a sense that they belong, and I create an atmosphere that aligns with growth and development. And that's one of the foundational things that has driven me to entrepreneurship, is that I believe that there was a greater impact that I could have. And when you have that in the back of your mindset, especially as it relates to education, really settle into that. And really, individuals can kind of define it for themselves. But in a world of AI, I would tell you it's not a bad thing if you don't go to school, but no matter whatever you do, you're going to have to be in learn mode. Yeah. So whether you go the traditional route or the not, you're still going to have to be under someone's tutelage and learning something, whether it's through YouTube, whether it's through all the different platforms that you see out there that offer education. I got to learn it in order to master it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And what I usually say around not traditional degrees, but just degrees and education and certificates is that a degree does not qualify you, but a lack of a degree can disqualify you, because that is still one of the boundaries or guidelines that many organizations are using. I actually was just having a conversation with someone preparing to go through a program, but the program isn't accredited. And I said, you have to double check, great knowledge, but now you need to decide what you're going to do with it. If you think you're going to go into a school with this, it's not going to work, because that's not an accredited program. And so I think you are spot on. I agree. I just was wondering what your perspective was. When you are thinking about this, and you mentioned your grand, and so you have kids, how do you teach them to navigate failure?
Oh, yes. Well, what's interesting is, as an entrepreneur,
exactly.
First and foremost,
failure is like Monday morning. It's going to come.
I share this sentiment, and I will, echo one of your moments on Off the Cuff. And this is, you have to allow yourself, and I would tell this to anyone, to first and foremost, and I learned this as an entrepreneur, is get used and comfortable with no. Mm-hmm. And no in any capacity, meaning no, I didn't get the job, no, I didn't get the promotion, or something as simple as no, I didn't get the business. Mm-hmm. How you interpret that sets the pace of what that looks like next for you, okay? And so as you navigate life and all the different circumstances that we find ourselves in, think about what that looks like in terms of the mindset that you have to have. So when it comes to failure, I am very clear with my children that, hey, just because you heard the no, just because it didn't work, ask yourself from the experience, what did it teach me? What did it teach me about me? And what did it teach me about what next looks like? And so when I have always had moments where things didn't go as planned. I did this proposal, and sometimes that proposal was a lot of work, but they went with another person. I don't go into the woe is me mode. Now, back in the day, I probably would have, but I've grown to a space that says, okay, what this showed me is the process of what this looks like perhaps going forward. And I'm going to take the wisdom of putting this proposal together, put it on the shelf, archive it, because guess what? Someone else is going to come and I can pull from this. So I'm going to utilize this for another area or opportunity that might be coming forward. So no, we don't go down the rabbit hole of failure. And it's always a mindset in the first place, because I say, no, well, Dad, I failed. Well, are you trying again? Well, yeah, I'm going to try again. Well, you didn't fail. Now, if you tell me you're going to settle in that and you're just giving up the opportunity or the possibility of what can look like going forward, now we sitting in failure, and we just don't do that. You really got to have the right mindset of what it looks like. It's not personal. My kids will tell you, they often hear me say, even those that are employed, you can't get mad at them folks for running their business like they want to run their business. So if they decide you don't need to be in this next phase of their reorganization, I can't get mad at them.
Because it's theirs.
Because it's their business. I guess I just got to be every day ready. Why? Because I see the value I'm bringing them to go give that value to somebody else. Mindset. I got to be in ready mode. So that failure is got to be not thinking that, but more like, hey, what did this experience teach me? Because failure is really just a feeling and a thought process, and you don't have to believe everything you're thinking anyway.
That right there. But now you've talked a lot about mindset. So I really have two questions around that. One is, what triggered you to start thinking about mindset for you? And then how do you teach people to change and develop the belief mindset, the abundance mindset, the capability mindset? How do you help transition them to that next level in thinking?
Yes, yes. So this is my sweet spot. So we're going to go on a journey.
I see us. Sounded like an old preacher over there. Yes, yes.
Yes. So mindset for me, and I'll take it back, which is why it is so exciting for me to work with folks around it, is that mindset for me goes back to a youngster, a teenager, a youngster growing up. And during my bullying days, and remembering, even as I sit here, all the names and things that people called me and all of this, and not just having this mindset that I had value or worth and things of that nature. And at like 15 and a half, 16, planned my own suicide. And so that for me was perhaps the lowest mindset that I could have about self-worth, self-image, and even identity. And to have done some extremely internal work to pull myself out of that, along with counseling and therapy and a coach myself, to pull myself out of that. I often tell people I'm a living example of what the beliefs and the mindset can take you to an opposite extreme. And I'm also a living example of how it can shift, all in the name of our willingness to do our internal work that helps to build us up. And so as we grow in these formative years, and you would be surprised the things that people find in their day-to-day of behavior, of thought processes, or how they respond and react to different things as to the what behind the why. And oftentimes it's beliefs, it's mindset that came along for the ride. Unconsciously, they had no idea it did, but it's showing up and it's manifesting itself in their day-to-day, not serving them. And so to be able to unpack, and yes, if you want to shift your mindset, you got to be willing to unpack. Unpack the things that don't serve you, unpack the things that you don't like, unpack the things that, are challenging you, and ask yourself, I always fast forward to today and say, tell me why that's not true today. And so if it's not true today, why do we keep believing it? Well, part of that journey that we go through, and I call it the inner critics, superpower is emotion. And then we got that inner coach that talks to us. We've got to build the mental muscle of the inner coach, because the mindset is only designed to keep us safe. And so I tell people, if you don't have a growth mindset, you can't be an entrepreneur, because you need the growth mindset to navigate through what that's going to teach you in terms of an experience. And if you want to be a leader, you have to have a growth mindset. And so you got to be able to shift to the identity, and part of that identity comes through alignment. So part of me working with individuals to help shift is I break it down to the bare necessities of what are your values. And oftentimes we say we have our values, but we really don't know what they are, which is just a good statement to have. But when we really sit down and do a deep values exercise, you end up finding your why. That why motivates you. And when you have challenges or you're having some things of self-doubt, like I have struggled with, not being good enough. Well, I could look at my values and say, it's not aligned with that. And so if I want to minimize the not being good enough that the inner critic wants to keep reminding me to keep me safe, then the inner coach has to remind me of my values. And so for each and every one of us, it's a daily tug of war. And depending on how you're pouring into you, it becomes much easier to shift your mind to the determination of where you want to go. All in the name of, I really want change. I really want to shift. I really want to unpack. And for some of us, it's healing. For some of us, you asked the question earlier, what would I say to my younger self? That's some of the things that we've got to do to help ourselves heal. If I'm finding that I'm still feeling that, what would my self now say to that younger self to help heal that and let that become less of a punch than what it has now in my life? And so it's a daily process, but it gets easier over time. But you got to be willing, I can't stress it enough, doing that inner work.
That inner work is, as you are saying and really conveying, it is critical to the change. And I also know from my own experiences that we often spend a lot of time talking about what people outside of us are saying, but it's really us that's saying the thing, because we will even navigate to the negativity. We can't even effectively hear the positive things, the edifying things that people are saying. And so I think it's actually intriguing once you really start to look at it and dig into it. Like, you heard that, huh? You didn't hear you're handsome. You didn't hear you're beautiful. But you did hear your eyebrows were too thick, or whatever. They just, it's so magnified.
We amplify the inner critic, and we don't look at the blessing or what you've come through or what you've been through. And that requires reframing. It requires rewiring. But you said a powerful thing too, and I think folks need to know this, is that even the external team, and we can have some amazing supporters, cheerleaders, and amazing followers, and they can be saying all the right things that anesthetize us to feel good, but I'm always going to be the loudest person talking to me, and I'm going to be the most convincing person talking to me. And if I don't take what I hear externally, plug that into here, and believe it, it's still going to be external noise. So you got to unpack that thing and be willing to find your inner voice, I say. And once you find that inner voice, man,
nothing can stop you.
Nothing.
All the way up.
That's right.
So now, and this is good, I want to continue on this path a little bit with what we're hearing, what we're processing, what we're believing, and being open to that. But one of the things I also was thinking about is forgiveness, right? Because you can hear the things, but you, right? And your critic is going to say, yeah, you were wonderful over here, but you were up too long and you stumbled over this word and you messed up in that. So what are some things that you do to practice the forgiveness of yourself? Not other people, but how do you forgive you so that you really can lean into that next?
And I will tell you, and this is just me in total transparency, in all honesty, Dr. Cuffie, in all honesty, 10 years ago, we'll give it about 10 years for me, I wasn't there until about 10 years ago, because I was my worst critic, and it could be because of my history and past, but I'm always my worst critic, and I would be very difficult for me to forgive myself when I made a mistake or did something wrong and did this and that and the other. It wasn't until, again, education and learning, folks, it wasn't until I got deeper into understanding emotional intelligence that I really said to myself, and it was almost interesting because I almost like had a light bulb aha moment where I finally realized that it's actually okay to give me grace. It's actually okay to give me empathy, to give my own self-compassion, the same of which we give to others on a daily basis, but it never crossed my mind that I could give it to me. And to finally get to that space to say, when something happens or something doesn't go well, and really just dissecting that thing of, well, what did I really learn from it? What did it really show me? And not that I'm not still a work in progress, because some things I probably still are a little bit hard on myself, and I don't know where that perfectionism comes from. Mama, I'm going to blame you for now. and I'll own it later. Of just, because of that real true standard of excellence that she really pushed for us as young men and so we strive for that constantly and we don't give ourselves the grace like I think we need to. And I'm in a better space, I think, even as I got into counseling and just being in a better space of, okay, I'm imperfect and we're actually all imperfect individuals. We're never going to be perfect. We're going to get some things wrong and it's okay. And you just got to ask yourself, what did I learn from it? What can I do differently? And forgive yourself. Forgive yourself. That's the biggest thing. And that release of forgiveness is also an amazing thing, all of which helps you to get that much closer to your highest and best self.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And so when you're offering that grace, right? So we're talking about the forgiveness of ourselves. We're talking about this belief mindset that we have to have so that we can really embrace the life that is intended for us. How do you keep from being drained?
Yes. And right in the space of where I just started doing some writing on. So you've got to find the balance in self-care. And part of that balance in self-care is not realizing that while we have, and even if we use this bottle for a moment, it's got a little bit out of it. But we have this vessel, if you will, which is our mindset and our energy, how we show up. And we have this, and as long as we feel like we got something in there, we're giving. But as we pour out, we are actually depleting. And if we don't intentionally say to ourselves, I got to refuel, I got to replenish, then while you think you're giving because you're in that space of giving compassionately, empathetically, and really grace to others and even yourself. And sometimes if you don't recognize that you got to have those moments to refuel while you're giving, you're actually not giving the best you. But in fact, you're giving what you got. And oftentimes that's not really what you intend to give. But I got a little bit in here and you can have it, even though I need. And so it's taken me a while to learn that it's good to give, but I got to give in the overflow. So I got to give when I'm full and I'm fueled, because then I'm bringing my best self that I can give and pour into others in a way that I feel good about what that looks like. And I'm sharp mentally and spiritually, physically, and emotionally, and I feel sharp about what that looks like. But too often, I think, even in this profession, certainly from counseling, social work, and all of this stuff that we do, we fail to refuel. And that can really take us down a real path of not really being your best self.
Absolutely. I think that is the refueling is so necessary. And when you poured the water, and I was thinking about the analogy, it's like you're giving your best, but I need cold water, but all you got is lukewarm water. But I'm going to give you this hot water and you're going to drink it and you're going to like it. But, it's one at the expense of ourselves, and we are not then being our best for others, to your point. And I think that's something that we don't think about because we're just trying to give. We're trying to pour out. And right now, I think that there are 5 different generations in the workforce today. And so right now, we are not only trying to pour out, but we're trying to pour out differently for every generation and for every person and for each scenario. We talk about situational leadership. We're trying to be accommodating to everyone. What have been some of the challenges maybe that you've observed, or even some lessons that you can share with working across generations?
Yes, very good question. And one of the unique things that I always tell people again is doing that work, doing that research to really truly understand not only what your workforce looks like, but what your team looks like, what your clients look like, what your partners look like. And even as I myself work with, I have some marketing folks that are like my children's age, and I have some maybe seasoned folks that I get a lot of wisdom from. And then I might have some folks that are my age that I get a lot of support and bouncing some things off. And one of the unique things that I'm always emphasizing, especially in a multi-generational workforce and even environment, is as a leader, certainly an inclusive leader, is to be thinking about the language that we use. And if we're not intentional about that language, and we don't recognize that once we become a leader, we don't put that lid on, if you will, but we still have that mindset of growth and development. And so one of the questions that I always say to ask is, as a leader at any level and working with a team, certainly multi-generational, is put the question out there, how can I support you? What's the best way for me as your leader to support you? Because rather than have me assume how I need to support my team, it's why not take a step further and say, ask my team what's the best way that they need for me to plug in. And you're going to have those that say, I need you to just tell me what to do. What's next? Once you give me a task, tell me what's next.
Right.
Then you're going to have those that say, I want to know the vision. Tell me where we're going. Because if I know where we're going, then once I get done with what I'm doing, I can start working and having some visions and suggestions and creativity of what next. Then you're going to have those that say, you didn't tell me that. You didn't mention that to me. And so if I don't understand those individuals, then I'm going to be leading from a space of assumption. And assumption doesn't support today's leaders. It doesn't support today's workplace, especially in a hybrid environment, because I need for workers as well as professionals to know and leaders to know that we don't have any less expectations because we're hybrid. We don't have any less expectations when we're in the office or even out of the office or whatever that looks like. Yes. And so it's always good to stay connected so that I'm supporting you in the best way for you to give me the results. No leader wants to have that conversation saying we're not in alignment, we're not meeting expectations, and utilize those moments, as I said earlier, which also helps in a multi-generational environment, is what's your values? Because our language may be different and out of alignment because values are misaligned. And as we're leading based on our organizational values, based on our leadership values, and then we got to say, okay, is there alignment with this? You might be wanting to go in a direction that doesn't even align with the organizational values. It may not align with my leadership values. And I'm wondering why we're clashing. It's not that you can't do the work. There's just misalignment.
Absolutely. I worked for a company and they sold alcohol. I'm not a big drinker at all. And so every time I got irritated, I was like, and I don't even drink this stuff. Why am I here? I was just irritated. And so I didn't stay long, but it was this misalignment, like I could do the work. The work was fine. I love people. The people are fine. But it was just something about it in its totality. That one thing was always just kind of a thing that just bothered me in the back of my head, and it didn't work out. But nevertheless, that was my experience around that. And so now we're thinking about, and I want one more question around this multi-generational. We talked about multi-generations, but let's also think about the folks that you're serving. They're coming from everywhere, right? Some are from huge companies, some are from small companies, some are navigating change, some of them are displaced, right, because of whatever has happened in the economy. But there are also like this huge, I'm sure, entrepreneurship window of folks that you're working with and you're serving. And I know that as entrepreneurs, and let me just say, I won't say that. For me, as an entrepreneur starting the business, I did not have everything that I needed, right? Just as you mentioned a little bit ago, to effectively start the business. But I started it anyway, right? How do you coach people through moving forward, even though they don't have everything that they think they need front and centered and in hand right away?
That's a great question, and I want people to hear this loud and clear. And that is really, really getting clear with expectations for you. And I think sometimes we start businesses, and again, I'm going to go back to mindset. And one of the first questions I ask, why did you start the business? And if you tell me, my mama said I was good at this, my friends keep coming to me for this, and so they said I should make it a business. Okay, here's what's going to happen. If mama goes off the scene, she's no longer your cheerleader. If your friends don't buy from you, don't support you, now where are you at? So intrinsically, the vision and the purpose of which you start a business, for me, I need you to know and truly understand that, because at the end, the foundation is what's going to keep you. Okay. So asking that question, and oftentimes people don't know it. And I'm big on, I need you to get real clear on why you want to do this business, or I'm good at suggestion. This may not be good, because not only do I need you to be motivated, and I say this intentionally, is I'm committed to the business because for me, it's purposeful and I believe it's my calling, God-given calling. In that, yes, there are days when I'm motivated. Some days I'm not motivated. Some days where it's great. Some days where it's not so great. I have some challenging clients. I have some folks that don't follow through. And all of that can truly make you if you get enough of that to say, you know what, this is not for me. But in that, the mindset says, but you're not in it for that. And what you find far and few is more do embrace it and are committed to the work that you do. And that, for me, one individual life that shifts is priceless. Which keeps me in the game. But individuals who are starting, who don't have the true, real purpose mindset, they haven't done that exercise of the what and the why behind the business. Get real. I think I need you to really cultivate that. And we work on what that needs to look like. And then I also say, stop looking at social media as your litmus test, because all you're getting is the back end of it. You're not getting the front end, vice versa. You're getting the front end, not the back end. And yes, what you see is oftentimes the end result. You're not seeing it took them X amount of years to get there. It took them this time. And all the stuff you see on social media isn't true. It's just there so you will click and you will like and you will do exactly what they want you to do. Don't make that your reality. Make your reality. Compare yourself to who you were yesterday. If yesterday you didn't have a business and now you have one, okay, you're a step ahead. Now, what do you want to look like as a business 30, 60, 90 days from now? Not what Sally and John look like. What do you want to look like? And what's realistic for you in this business? When you say things like, well, what do your relationships look like? Well, I don't have none. Okay, so where do you think you're going? And so that means you got to do some footwork. You got to do some present work. You might have to do some exposure on social media. You might have to do some things. And all of that may seem uncomfortable because you've never done it before, but you got to be willing to take the steps, your steps, not anybody else's steps, your steps. This is your journey, not anyone else's journey. And I'm constantly comparing myself to what I was yesterday, not what Jim is doing that is my peer and of my age. Because the number one question I hear a lot of, well, Nick, I'm at this age in my life and all my peers are doing this. And I'm like, well, who made the timeline? Who set the standard? You're comparing yourself to them. You set your own standard. I'm here where I need to be in life because oftentimes I tell people, look, if you'd have did it 10 years ago, you wasn't ready. You didn't have the right mindset. You got the right mindset now, so you would have saved yourself a whole lot of time, maybe a couple of failures. To be where you are now and the mindset of alignment, the value of alignment is extremely important for long-term sustainability. I think people really need to understand when we say sustainability, oh my God, the ups, the downs, the good, the bad, and the ugly. You got to keep saying, hey, this is that much purposeful to me that I'm going to keep leaning in because lives still need to be impacted.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. This is so good to me. And I've heard you mention your wife a couple of times. So tell us a little bit about her. Come on and laugh. Come on and bat your eyes. Yes. When you think of her.
This is interesting because my wife works for me now.
Oh.
She's retired. And I often say my capacity as a business owner increased because of her, because she's extremely organized. Nick's not the greatest in organization. I can organize digitally, but paper, no, not so much. But I'm a great digital, put it in folders and all of that, but not so much digitally. But she helps me keep my systems going. And so it's good to have that partner who also, from an entrepreneurial standpoint, supports. Because when you have those days that are down, days that are, man, is this going, I have this vision that I want to do and I don't know. And I start having those I'm not good enough moments. It's good to have a partner that says, no, we got this. And when you hear that word we, man, you get so much adrenaline and motivation and excitement that, you're not in this game alone. You're not doing this alone. And so kudos to her for being in the game with me for 37 years, 36 years this year, yes.
Okay, so you're almost 36 years marriage. Okay, what's your wisdom? What are you teaching people? How to do it?
Really, first and foremost, you got to put God first. So I'm huge on that. And, it's amazing. People don't realize it, but prayer changes things. Staying committed changing things. And I often tell people, and I tell my son who's married now and my others who are in relationships, is that, look, you get to this point, and I'll just speak for me, where you both look at each other and you say, you ain't going nowhere and I ain't either. So, and then you say, this is my person. So I wouldn't want to do this journey again with nobody else because this is my person. And that's just, what I'm committed to. I just believe this is God. This is the person you said we're going to do this journey together with. And this is my person. And I love her to death. We're going to take this on to the finish line. People say, well, what if this and that? Well, you know what? You both are going to evolve. You both are going to evolve and change. And she may like blue today and like red tomorrow. You're just going to have to admit
Make the adjustment.
You may like green today and blue tomorrow. You got to make the adjustments. And it's all good because you make the adjustments together and you support through the good, through the bad. That's the life. But it's your person.
Yeah. And I think that there's something to be said about that evolution, because if you are meeting a new person, you'd have to figure them out. But here's this person that has been anchored with you. They're committed to you. And now they like red now. And now there's something exciting. Now I need to go out and find her a red dress, not a blue dress, whatever that thing is. And so I think that there's so much to be said about that. I have enjoyed, my goodness, this time with you, Nick. Thank you for taking time out. Thank you for just hanging out. Thank you for sharing, imparting your wisdom. Those of you that are listening and or watching, grab your piece of paper, take your notes. I should have said that at the top, but nevertheless, watch it again, take your notes, find a thing every day to just implement immediately into your daily practices. So that way you can have that belief mindset and you can have that abundant mindset. You can have that wealth mindset. And then just as we're getting ready to work, kind of wrap up, Nick, here, the overall theme and purpose for this podcast is to embrace, which is that inclusivity, right? Bringing everybody along with us to empower, giving tools and strategies for people to go to that next level, and then to elevate, which is to really position people to go to that next level, right? Or creating platforms for them to get there. When you think of those three words, embrace, empower, elevate, what resonates most with you?
I'll give it to you in a statement. Everybody that's listening, and really everybody in the world, gets this opportunity to motivate, to elevate, and empower. We all get 24 hours in a day, and we all have this opportunity to elevate, to motivate, and inspire. And if you're thinking about that in your individual life, we get this opportunity each and every day, but unfortunately, a lot of people, it takes a lifetime to get there. And so what I would challenge everyone to do, as I try to do each and every day in this work, is to take a moment, elevate, take a moment, inspire, something as simple as good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and take a moment to just embrace. Embrace someone in love, embrace someone in grace and empathy. We got this opportunity, and I would say make right now, because that's all we got, your moment. Because something just simple of shifting the mindset costs you nothing. And just do that.
So just do it. Just do it. Just do it. And so with that, could you just do what the man said? Just do it. Just encourage somebody, lift somebody, speak positively in somebody's life. I believe that you can do it. And with that said, we thank you for joining. We thank you for this opportunity. Thank you again, Nick.
Thank you so much.
And you all remember, please live life empowered. Take care. Goodbye.